Angela May Villaluna, and this is my activity in oral communication. And with this activity, I will help you learn and know more about different communication models. Let us first know what is communication. Well, language experts believe that communication is a systematic and dynamic process, wherein when we say systematic, there is a flow of things. Since 300 BC, theorists have developed communication models in attempts to explain and understand how to improve communication and rhetoric. As the time has passed, we have developed increasingly more complex models to explain how we communicate. Today, the main models of communication can be split into three categories. We have your linear communication model, interactive models, and transactional models. Linear communication models only looks at one-way communication. It is a straight line of communication leading from the sender directly to the receiver. In this model, the sender creates a message, encodes it for the appropriate channel of delivery, and pushes the message out to its intended audience. The interactive model looks at two-way communication. It is also known as convergence model. It deals with exchange of ideas and messages taking place both ways from sender to receiver and vice versa. The communication process takes place between humans or machines in both verbal or non-verbal way. This is a relatively new model of communication for new technologies like web. The transactional model looks at two-way communication where the messages gets more complex as the communication event, example, conversation, progresses. The transactional models refers to the continuous exchange of information where both the sender and the receiver are involved in the process and take turns to communicate messages. Now that we know that, let us explore the different model of communication. Number 1, the Aristotle's model. It is linear type of communication model. It argues that we should look at 5 elements of communication event to analyze how best to communicate: speaker, speech, occasion, target, audience, and effect. Number 2, we have the Laswell's model. It is also linear type of communication. It is a basic framework for analyzing one-way communication by asking 5 questions. Who said what? Through which channel? To whom? And with what effects? Number 3, the Shannon-Weaver model. It is a linear type of communication. The Shannon-Weaver model is the first to highlight the role of noise in communication, which can disrupt or alter a message between sender and receiver. Number 4, we have Berlow's SMCR model. It is a linear type of communication model which explains communication in 4 steps. S for source, M for message, C for channel, and R for receiver. For the interactive type of communication, we have Osgood-Schramm model and Wesley-McLean model. The Osgood-Schramm's model looks at reciprocal communication, showing how we have to encode, decode, and interpret information in real life during a conversation. The Wesley and McLean model shows that our communication is influenced by environmental, cultural, and personal factors. For the transactional type of communication, we have here Barland's transactional model and Dance's helical model. Barland's transactional model of communication highlights the role of private and public cues that impact our messages. Dance's helical model sees communication as a circular process that gets more and more complex as communication occurs, which can be represented by a helical spiral. For further explanation, let us first go through linear models, which explains one-directional communication process. Aristotle's model, a framework for thinking about how to improve your communication abilities by looking at key aspects underpinning a situation. Aristotle's model of communication is the oldest communication model dating back to 300 BC. The model was designed to examine how to become a better and more convincing communicator. Aristotle argues we should look at 5 elements of the communication event to analyze how best to communicate: speaker, speech, occasion, target, audience, and effect. also identify three elements that will improve communication: ethos, which is the credibility; pathos, ability to connect; and logos, the logical argument. Aristotle's model does not pay attention to the role of feedback in communication. Next, we have the Laswell's model. It is a basic framework for analyzing one-way communication by asking 5 questions. Who said what, through which channel, to whom, and with what effects. Laswell's model of communication tries to understand the communication event by asking 5 important questions. It looks at who created the message and what their bias may be, what they said, the channel they said it through, and for example, the TV, the radio, or the blog, who they said it to, and what effect it had on the receiver. This model is effective as it provides a very simple and practical way of critiquing a message and exploring 5 important elements that can help explain the event under analysis in more detail. This is the table that explains clearly what Laswell model is. For the question who, its component is the communicator, and to analyze this, we have control analysis. The example of this component is the vacuum cleaner salesman. Why he is the person who will send the message. Next, we have the question says what. Its component is the message. To analyze this, we use content analysis. For example, promotes his brand or vacuum as the best brand. This example is the content or the message given by the salesman, which he says that his product was the best. For the question, in which channel? Its component is the medium. To analyze this, we have media analysis. For example, on television. The television is the example because it is the medium where he promotes his product as the best. Next, to whom? Its component is the audience. To analyze this, we have audience analysis. For example, to evening TV viewers in the United States. Here they act as the one who receives the message sent by the sender. Next, we have the question in what effect. Its component is the effect. To analyze this, we use effect analysis. Example of this component is achieving brand awareness, promoting the belief that this is the best vacuum, leading to increased sales revenue. Next, we have the Shannon-Weaver model. The Shannon-Weaver model is the first to highlight the role of noise in communication, which can disrupt or alter a message between sender and receiver. The Shannon-Weaver model sees communication occurring in 5 key parts. We have the sender, encoder, channel, decoder, and receiver. It emphasizes the importance of encoding and decoding messages for them to be sent. Example, turning them into written words, Morse code, etc. During the process of encoding, sending, and decoding, noise occurs that can disrupt or cloud a message. In the most traditional sense, this may be static on a radio broadcast or even extend to mishearing a conversation or misspelling an email. This model was the first to introduce the role of noise in the communication process. The idea of feedback was retroactively introduced to this model. Now we have the Berlos SMCR model. It explains communication in 4 steps: the source, message, channel, and receiver. The unique aspect of Berlos model is that it gives a detailed account of the key elements in each step that will affect how well the message is communicated. Source. Elements of the source includes communication skills of the sender, their attitude, and their culture. Message. Elements of the message includes its content, structure, and code. Channel. Elements of the channel includes the senses of hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, etc. Receiver. Elements of the receiver includes their attitude, knowledge, and culture. Since the communication is occurring in 4 steps, there are several factors in each step that will impact the outcome of communication. The source and the receiver have just the same components below, which are communication skills, attitude, knowledge, social system, and culture. For the medium, we use as contents, elements, treatment, structure, and code. And for the channel, we use as 5 senses, which are the hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, and tasting. Let's move on and go through interactive models. Interactive models are best for explaining impersonal two-way communication processes. For the interactive models, we have Osgood-Schramm's model. The Osgood-Schramm's models looks at the reciprocal communication, showing how we have to encode, decode, and interpret information in real time during a conversation. The Osgood-Schramm's model explores communication that is equal and reciprocal. It does not differentiate between the sender and the receiver, but sees each as being in an equal position as message encoders and decoders. This model is best for explaining and examining personal synchronous communication where feedback is immediate, such as face-to-face discussions. As feedback is immediate, noise can be reduced through ongoing clarification of messages during the conversation. After the interactive model, we have the transactional models, which explains direct personal communication process where two-way feedback is immediate. For the number 7, we have the Barlown's transactional model. Barlown's transactional model of communication highlights the role of private and public views that impact our messages. Barlown's transactional models of communication is a model that explores interpersonal immediate feedback communication. Central to this approach is the idea that feedback for the sender is the reply for the receiver. Danza's helical model sees communication as a circular process that gets more and more complex as communication occurs, which can be represented by a helical spiral. Danza's helical model builds on circular models by explaining how we improve our messages over time by using feedback. When we communicate with others, their feedback will influence our next statement. We became more knowledgeable with each cycle of communication, enabling us to expand our circles as represented by the increasingly wider and wider circles. The movement of the spiral indicates that each communication practice is new and different from the previous, as communication does not ever perfectly repeat itself. That's all for our topic for today. Always remember that the most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. Said by Peter Drucker. There are many facts and nuances of communication. The surface level consists of the literal meaning of the written or spoken words. Below the surface are the nuances and the true messages being communicated. Great communicators understand this and